Hello and welcome to the Acceleration Netcast. This is episode 11. In this episode, we're going to start with this table over here, which has got a whole bunch of revenue, and each revenue has a code associated with it. And what we want to do is we want to build this table over here, where we've got all the codes here on the y-axis, and in the body of the table, we get the revenue by instance. So the first time that Washington appears in this list, we get that value there. So we get Washington. The first time Washington appears, we get 17,000. The second time Washington appears, we get 68,000, 1768, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is we want to generate a list of all the codes in this table right here. And we want to be able to do it, like here we can kind of eyeball it, but let's say that we've got a big table and we don't know what the codes are off the top of our head. We want to build it quickly. So here's a way to do that. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to do Control-Shift down arrow, Control-C, I'm going to click right here, do Control-Alt-V to paste special, hit the V button, so I'm just going to paste values, and hit OK. So now I've got a big long list, but there's a bunch of duplicates in here. So luckily there's a quick way to handle that. I'm going to do the keyboard shortcut Alt-A-M to remove duplicates. It's detecting that this might be part of a bigger table over here, and it wants to know if I want to include all this stuff over here. I don't. I'm going to do continue with the current selection, remove duplicates, hit OK, and I'm done. If I want to sort it alphabetically, I can do that. It's going to give me the same prompt. Hit sort, and there I am. I'm good to go. Okay, so now that I've got the list of codes, before I get started, there's one other thing I want to do, and that's I'm going to name these ranges just to make my formulas a little easier to read. So, actually, it looks like I've already done that, but if for some reason these weren't named already, what I would do is I would select the region I wanted to name, and I would come up here, I'd left-click and type in column code, because I want this area to be named column code. And let's see, this one, I've already named column revenue. For example, if I wanted to name this range, I could highlight the stuff that I want to name. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to do COLLN. You don't have to do that COL part to begin with, but I kind of like it because that way you know with your named ranges whether it's a column, whether it's a row, whether it's a table. So that's just kind of a nice way of going about things. So I'm going to hit enter, and now we are good to go with the rest of the table. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to start with an array that gives us all the positions that we're going to need to pull these revenues out. Just to do that, we're going to start with an if statement. We want to know, does the column of code, does that equal this guy right here? And by the way, we're going to hit F4. Let's see if we want to get the $sign in front of the F, so when we copy it over this direction, it still stays on this column right here. We want to know, does the column of codes equal this code right here? So if we look at that and we hit F9 to evaluate it, we're going to notice where everywhere in this column where it equals Alaska, we're going to get a true. So we're going to get a true in the 4th position and a false before that. And then true over here in the 12th position. If we get a true, what we're going to deliver is we want to deliver the position where it's true. And to do that, we're going to do a little trick. We're going to do a row function, and we're going to do row A1 through A16. And the reason we're doing A1 through A16, we're pointing at this sort of big block of nothing out here, is because what we want is we want an array that's the same size as this array, except that it's filled with the numbers 1 through the total number of numbers in the array. So since there's 16 numbers in this array, we're going to do A1 through A16. And if we highlight it and hit F9 to evaluate it, we see that we get an array that's got 16 entries in it, and in those entries is the numbers 1 through 16. I'm going to do Control-Z. If, for instance, I had an array that was 32, that had 32 positions in it, I would hit F9 and I would get 1 through 32. But this one only goes from there to there, which is 16 positions. So we're going to do 16, A1 through A16. And as I copy this around, I want it to stay A1 through A16. So I'm going to hit F4 once, so it's always going to be pointing to that range. So if this equals true, I want the number of the position where it's true, and if it equals false, I want null string. So if we highlight the entire thing and hit F9, what we end up with is an array where everywhere that Alaska doesn't appear, we get nothing, we get this null string, and everywhere it does appear, we get the position where it appears. So here we see that the first time Alaska appears is here in the 4th position, the next time that it appears is here in the 12th position, and then it appears in the 15th and the 16th. So I'm going to hit Control-Z. That's just perfect. Because this is an array formula, and we know it's an array formula because we're passing this guy right here, which is an array, into an if statement, which can't normally take arrays. Because of that, to enter this, we have to do Control-Shift-Enter. And that's what I'm going to do right now. Control-Shift-Enter. Now we get a blank here, but that's okay. The reason we get a blank is if I highlight this and evaluate it, the first position that it sees is blank, and so that's what it shows us. But that's no big deal. Okay. So now we've got our array of positions. Now what we want to do is use that to build sort of a table of positions. So to do that, I'm going to use the small function. What the small function does is it looks at an array, and it pulls the kth smallest number from that array. So if I set this equal to 1, if I set k equal to 1, it's going to pull the first smallest, or absolute smallest, number from this array right here. If I set it equal to 2, it's going to pull the second smallest number. If I set it equal to 3, it's going to pull the third smallest number. Well, I'm going to set it equal to this right here. That way, when it's in this cell, it's going to pull the first smallest number, and when it's in this cell right here, it'll pull the second smallest and the third smallest, and so on and so forth. Although, because we're going to be copying and pasting this, we want to get our absolute references right. So in this one, we want the 3 to stay locked, and the G can change. So we want a $sign in front of the 3. Good. Just perfect. Okay. I'm going to close parentheses. I'm going to do Control-Shift-Enter again. And we're not done yet, but I'm just going to show you where we are. If I use the fill handle to drag the formula over here, and then drag it down, what we've got is pretty close to what we want. We've got this table. It doesn't have the revenues, but what it does have is the position of where each one of those revenues are in this table right here. So for Alaska, we know that the first time it appears is in the 4th position, the 12th position, then the 15th and the 16th. Okay, with that information, I'm going to hit F2 to go into edit mode. We can use the index function to pull the actual revenues. Okay, so what array are we going to be pulling from? Well, we're going to be pulling from this array right here, which is the column of revenue. Okay, hit space. Notice because it knows it's a named range, this is now blue. If it's not blue, you've probably typed it in wrong. So what we want to pull from is this array right here. And which position do we want to pull? Well, that's what we've just built right here. Okay, so I'm going to do close parentheses, Control-Shift-Enter. And we're not quite done, but we're even closer, so I'm just going to show you where we are. Double-click to send that guy down. And now notice we're just about perfect. We've got all the revenues that we want. The only two problems we have are, since there's everywhere where it tries to pull something that doesn't exist, like there is no 5th instance of Alaska. There is no 5th instance of Idaho. It's going to give us this error because it doesn't know what to pull. So to get around that, I'm going to hit F2. We're going to use our old tried and true if error formula, open parentheses. If there's an error, well then, deliver null string. Close parentheses, Control-Shift-Enter to enter it as an array formula. Now, when I use the fill handler to drag it over here, and double-click to send it down, we get exactly what we want. So the only other thing that I kind of want to do is just to make it look a little nicer, I'm going to do Control-Shift-4 to render all that stuff as currency. And I'm also going to go over here and, I don't know, center these because it looks kind of nice. And I'll select that and use borders so it's even easier to look at. But we're done. That's everything that we wanted to do. So now we've taken this information over here and we've created a table where for each code we've got the revenues by instance within the original table. So I hope that was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time.